Hare Krishna. We'll start today's session with the prayers. Om Ajnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Jena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Jena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kada Mahyam Dadati Swapadankitam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yutapada Kamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavascha Shri Rupam Sagarajatam Sahagana Raghunathanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijanasahitam Shri Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Shri Lalita Vishakhanvitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namastate Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Sri Radhe Vrindeshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vanchakalpatarobhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya eva cha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavyo Namo Namaha Namo Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namini Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharini Nirvisheshai Shunyavadi Paschatadeshatadini Jayo Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna. Hare Krishna to all the devotees. Welcome to the level 2 online Bhagavad Gita classes. And today we'll start chapter 3. Yeah. So before we start chapter 3, right? So let's do a quick recap. So I need digital hands to be raised. So in chapter 2, we basically went into 4 sections, and if say each of the devotee can cover one of the section in 1 or 2 lines, that should be sufficient. So can I have digital hands raised, please? So what did we learn in chapter 2? Basically 5 sections, right? So no one remembers anything?
Okay. Hare Krishna Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna Mataji.
So one point that I can share is that the one who dies takes birth again, and
Yeah.
then and who takes birth will die also. So there is no point lamenting for anybody's death during the war, and we should do our prescribed duty no matter what comes.
Okay. So Mataji covered jnana, yeah. So there is no death for the soul. Okay. So one section she covered. Others can cover the rest of the sections which are not covered. Yeah.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna Prabhu.
One about the last chapter discussed about the Sthita Prajna. Who is in Krishna consciousness will not break down, fall down. Hare Krishna Prabhuji.
Self-realized soul. Yeah. Correct, Prabhu. So 2 are gone. So, Hare Krishna. Other 2? Anyone?
Arjuna submits himself to Krishna, and Krishna starts teaching him. Begins to teach.
Correct. So Arjuna surrenders, and then Arjuna takes the role of the teacher. Okay. One more. 2 more. Sorry.
It was we dealt with the reasons for Arjuna to win and the reasons that Arjuna did not want to fight the war.
That was chapter 1, Mataji. Chapter 2.
Yeah.
There are 2 sections. So,
and we also dealt with karma yoga.
yeah. So that is niskama karma. Yeah. So with buddhi yoga, we dealt, and in between there was a small section. Anyone remembers? Between jnana and buddhi, there was a small section.
Prabhuji, it was sense gratification. If we look for our sense gratification, then the samoha comes. Then it gives rise to krodha, and then we lose our temper and intelligence. Is it?
That's all. The qualities of Shrita Pragya, say we discussed is those things.
Okay.
But there is something, say, wherein, so before Buddhi Yoga, right? What was the thing which was being told to Arjuna? Just
Hare Krishna Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji.
Prabhuji, was it Sankhya Yoga?
No, Sankhya is done. Post that, there was a small section. Say, wherein Arjuna was told to fight, right? So, and then it was being told that if you win, you'll get the kingdom, and then if
Yeah,
you
everything
lose,
is predefined by God. We are just nimitta matra. Everything is predefined by God, and is that the same thing?
yeah, not exactly, but it's karma kanda. Yeah. So we just discussed that. So therein, right? So there the fruits were tagged, right? Saying that either you win or you lose, right? So everywhere, say you have a win-win situation kind of thing. Yeah. So that was karma kanda, which was being discussed. Yeah. Thank you everyone for participating and giving your inputs. Yeah. So today's chapter is chapter number 3. Yeah. So until now, right? So there were a lot of discussions between Arjuna and Lord Krishna, right? So they went into a lot of details, right? From Sankhya to Karma Yoga and then to Sthita Pragya and all these things, right? So Arjuna was loaded with a lot of information. And next, Arjuna actually clarifies his doubt. Yeah. So Arjuna actually starts questioning now. Say whatever he has heard, right? So he is actually clarifying. So this is what a sincere student will be doing, right? So he listens from say the teacher, and then he asks questions. And in this case, right, Arjuna is asking these doubts on behalf of us, because when we read Bhagavad Gita, right, we'll have all these doubts. So he's the first disciple, so he's clearing all the lines for us. Yeah. So we'll see what we'll look into in Karma Yoga. Yeah. So in here, so now Krishna's now Arjuna will ask all his doubts about basically the Karma Yoga and Jnana Yoga. It's Buddhi Yoga and Jnana Yoga. So now he'll ask which is better. Okay. So now he'll ask whether I have to renounce or say I'll have to fight. So, and then he'll say that you only said that Buddhi Yoga is better. So Arjuna thinks that Buddhi Yoga is nothing but Jnana Yoga, and wherein he can still renounce without fighting. Yeah. So again, somehow he wants to escape, right? So he actually brings this route also once again, and then he asks that say you said that Jnana will also lead to the same path, and then Buddhi also, and then you said that both are so you spoke equivocally, right? The importance of both. Then he says that I'm confused. You tell me one path, which one to follow, either to renounce, I'll become a sage in the forest, yeah, or do I need to fight? work or renounce? Is the question now. So he's asking Lord Krishna in the first two verses, right? He actually mentions these things and then he asks for clarification. He says that, tell me, what should I do? Whether I should renounce or I should work. Yeah. So to that, actually, Krishna in this chapter, right, he replies, right, and in the first few verses, he touches for the Nishkama Karma Yoga. Yeah. So Nishkama Karma Yoga is nothing but perform your duty without getting attached to the results. Yeah. So then he actually says that, okay, if you can't do it, right, say do karma yoga, and then he says that if that is also not possible, then do karma kanda at least. Yeah. And then he clarifies a lot of things. Yeah. And then how do we do all these things? Yeah. Where do these jivas get all this information about what to do and what not, right? So all these things are uh, defined in Vedas, and from Vedas we get this information. Yeah. And basically there is a lot of information which is being shared on yajna, the importance of yajna, the fire sacrifice and all, right? And who's yagnapati or yagnapurusha. Yeah. So all these things are being discussed in this chapter. Okay. And so he again tells about the different devatas and then how they are interlinked, and then say how they are being managed, and then what is their role. Yeah? So where do we get all nature supply from? So it goes into a variety of tangents, and then renunciation. Yeah. So artificial renunciation is very dangerous. So even that is being touched. So we'll see through. Yeah. So this is just an overall thing, so which we'll discuss in today's class. We'll follow through the slides now. Yeah. So this is something which we covered now. So I'll not touch base here. Okay. So this we covered. Yeah. And this is what this is also covered. So we'll not again go through it. And then this is basically the chapter gist. Yeah. The section. Yeah. Section wise verses, right? So what each section covers. Yeah. So first covers with renunciation or work, and then karma kanda to karma yoga, nishkama karma yoga, and be aware of lust and anger. So we'll try to cover two sections in this session, and another two in the next session. Yeah. So this is what the question, right? So renunciation or work. So which is better is the question which Arjuna asks. Yeah, Arjuna is confused now. And then because there were a lot of things which were spoken, so he's asking whether renunciation, jnana yoga is better or karma yoga, nishkam karma yoga is better. Yeah. So though Arjuna is qualified, right? So he's asking all these questions for us. Yeah. And what is the enemy? At the end, we'll get to know. So what is the enemy in the path of yoga? Yeah. So we also had some glance of these enemies in the Sthita Prajna quality section, right? So we went through it. Yeah. So we'll go to the next slide. So renunciation or work, yeah. And then he asks, say, which way to go? Say, tell me one direction, ekam vada. So which direction to take? He's asking. Yeah? And then, yeah, so these all things he actually cites, saying that, so you mentioned in 2.49, right? Durena hi avaram. So he tells that you mentioned in the second chapter that we should be away from the abominable activities, which is nothing but We should not be attached to the fruits of the work. Yeah. So from there he begins. Okay. So that is the same verse is being highlighted here. So the question now Arjuna asks, he's asking, why do you want me to engage into this ghastly warfare? If you think that intelligent is better than curative activity, he's asking, if you think Jnana Yoga is better, then why are you asking me to engage in this ghastly war? Yeah, so that is what Arjuna is asking to the Lord. So here the definitions, right, or the expansion of the Buddhi Yoga has been given. Yeah, sometimes people will think that it's just an inertia. Yeah, and say all these things, right? Say not advisable without proper training in philosophy of Krishna consciousness. Yeah, and a secluded place is chosen to chant the holy name of Lord in full Krishna consciousness. So this is all Arjuna's doubts, right? So he's asking, so which is better? Yeah. So here, if you see, right, the main thing is Arjuna wanted to tactfully avoid fighting. Yeah. He is thinking, how can I avoid these fighting? Yeah. So now even he says the same thing, equivocal. Yeah. So we just discussed. So now we'll get into this. So Krishna answers, say about karma yoga. Yeah. So he says that nishkama karma yoga is better. Yeah. So here again, the same verses have been given, wherein one verses is about analytical study, right? Analytical study is nothing but speculative knowledge. Yeah? And then devotional service is nothing but whose mind is fixed, in devotional service. So here, they now say Lord Krishna starts answering. Yeah? So he says that I have already explained that there are two classes of men. One who is self-realized, yeah, and who try to realize themselves self. Yeah. So some of them are inclined to empirical philosophical speculation and others devotional. So here he says again bhakti and jnana. Yeah. So in here, right, again, so we'll just go through the examples also. Yeah. So in say if you look at say in our Bhagavatam or yeah in our Shastras, right? Say the Jnanis who became liberated by Bhakti were the four Kumaras. We can take an example of the four Kumaras who were Jnanis initially, and then they got liberated by Bhakti. Yeah? And then so if we think of karmis, right? So karmi is actually by doing their work, right? Their heart becomes pure. Okay. And say one of the example is King Janaka. Yeah. Even we'll have one verse for King Janaka also in this chapter. Yeah. So wherein, so I think verse number 20. So wherein we'll discuss about King Janaka also. Yeah. So we'll go through these details and then we'll see the difference. What is the path? Okay. Say for the Gyanis, and then what is the path of Bhakti. Yeah. So we have a comparative table also. So wherein we'll go through and then say we'll see. Yeah. Say which path needs what endeavor. Yeah. So that is which we'll see in the next coming slides. And so basically this analytical study is what nature of spirit and matter, right? And Buddhi Yoga is wherein one is relieved from the bondage of work, yeah, because he is dependent entirely on the Supreme Lord Krishna. Yeah. So the ultimate goal of both is the yoga process to reach Krishna only. Okay. So either cases, the end goal is to reach Krishna only. Okay. So one is a little bit faster and the other takes time. That's it. Say one is like our school example, right? So wherein people ask, where is your nose? You directly show this is my nose, or you show round and then you show this is the nose. Yeah. The end result is same. Okay. So in simple terms, that is what we can understand. Yeah. And here we'll just, these are all from the purports. Yeah. So Sankhya Yoga and Karma Buddhi Yoga are independent like religion and philosophy. Yeah. So with religion without philosophy is sentiment and or sometimes fanatism. Yeah. Philosophy without religion is mental speculation. Yes. And see here the same thing is mentioned. The ultimate goal is Krishna. Yeah. So we'll just go through the tabular thing. So that will give us easy understanding. And then this is just a definition of what is religion and philosophy. Yeah. So we spoke, right? So religion without philosophy is sentiment and those things, right? So this is the definition. Yeah. So religion is nothing but it encompasses a range of practices, including rituals, prayers, meditations, holy places, symbols, trances, and feasts. But philosophy are engaged in asking, answering, and arguing for their answers to life's most basic questions. So this is more dry. Yeah. So wherein see in both the cases, anyhow, say the heart needs to be purified. Yeah. Without that, we can't do anything. So, but this is very dry. And then here, at least in these things, right, you can actually feel, right? Say you can actually do you can see the religious rituals, the prayers, and the holy places and all, right? And then at least you can connect. But this is very difficult. Philosophy is very difficult. Yeah. Yeah. So this is the table which I was saying. So which gives a clear demarcation of Sankhya and Buddhi. Yeah. Jnana and karma. So one is indirect path. This is direct path. Yeah. Here dependence on personal endeavor. So here we need the dependence on Krishna's mercy. It depends upon how much we surrender. Yeah. And so depending upon that, the Lord reciprocates. Even we look at there is a verse also. Ye yathamam prapadyante. Yeah. So that is also there. And here you are unsure of success because it's very philosophical, right? And then there are chances that say we may fail. But here there is surety of success. Yeah. So even for that also, right? Krishna gives us sarvadharman paritajya. Yeah? And so initial purification required by prescribed duty. So here ends and means are the same. So Krishna conscious itself is purificatory. So the purification is here before we take up this Jnana Yoga, right? Purification is required. But here you can start and then slowly get purified. But in either cases, right? So purification of heart is the essence. Yeah. So without that, we can't do anything. So without having our hearts purified, right? So we can't move in. Yeah. So that is the tabular formats wherein we can understand these two things. And the next verses, right? So wherein so renunciation. So now majority of the time, right? What we will feel is say to purify the heart, right? We'll have to renounce everything, right? So renunciation of activity say is not the means for purification or is not the ultimate thing. Yeah. So that has to be done through a process. So that we will see in the next slides. Yeah. So we came in here, right? Okay. Yeah. So this is text number 5. So in this, the verse number 5. So wherein everyone is forced to act helplessly according to the qualities he has acquired from the modes of material nature. Yeah. So this is nothing but the way we are entangled, right? So the bodies which we have got, and then say the work which we carry out, right? So all this is depending upon the material nature which actually gives us. Yeah. And so, and the other thing is, say I was speaking about renunciation, right? And in there, right? Say if we do some service to the Lord, right? So even though it is small, right? It is much better. Okay. So instead of doing this artificial renunciation, right? So artificial renunciation is very danger. Yeah. So we shouldn't do that. So yeah, and the other thing is here, the most important point is the spiritual is active. So this is always active, and then so we'll always engage it in any of the service. Yeah, either you have actually engaged it in the service of Krishna or Maya, either of the thing. Yeah, the soul will look for either of the thing. Either it will engage for Krishna or illusory energy. Yeah. So, and the best thing is always to engage in higher taste, right? So, last chapter also we were discussing in Sutta Pragya, right? Saying that the senses should always be engaged in a higher taste. Say, higher taste. Maybe we'll take an example of a small child, right? So if a small child is eating a sugar candy, right? Say, and there you give her a Cadbury or a 5-star. So the moment you give that, right? So the small child, right? So it will actually keep the sugar candy aside, and then it will pick the Cadbury or a 5-star chocolate. Yeah. So that is how so we should engage our activities so that so we have a higher taste. Yeah. So rather than say hanging to the illusory Maya, right? So we should, if we engage the senses and the soul in a higher purpose, right? So higher goal, right? Then they'll never like to have the sugar candies anymore. The child, once it tastes Cadbury, right? So they'll not like, they'll actually even throw the sugar candy. But if there is no option, right? So there is no choice on what to do. So the child will eat the sugar candy. So it will continue eating the sugar candy. So we'll also be continuously serving the Maya, the senses, and then she will be in the cycle of birth and death. So we can will be in there only. Yeah? So that is one thing. So it is always better to engage our senses for a higher cause. Yeah. And then we'll see the pictorial representation of this. There is a small flow diagram. Yeah. So this is the soul. Yeah. So which is active. And then whatever I said, right? So either we engage it in Krishna consciousness by doing different services like doing meditation or cooking for the Lord, doing arti or washing you the floor or anything. So all these activities which are related to Krishna, we are engaging in the service to Krishna, or else we'll be engaging all our senses in these area. Yeah. So the Maya. Yeah. So and actually the Vedas, right? So here the Vedas give us recommended duties for purifying our soul, and then go back to Krishna. The whole purpose of why we are here is that we actually get the information from the Shastras, and then Shastras are there to guide us. Yeah. And to take what is the authentic thing from the Shastras, practice that, and so go back to the Godhead. Yeah. And then so get out of this repeated cycle of birth and death. So that is our main agenda. Yeah. And sometime back, so I was saying, right, it is very dangerous to do artificial renunciation. In this picture you see, right? So this person is renounced with a mobile and a cigar. Yeah. So still he has sense enjoyment. Yeah. So for the sake of doing renunciation, he doesn't. So there is no point in doing this. Yeah. So we should never be a pretender. Yeah. Wherein still our senses are hovering for something. So for material gains. Yeah. For money, woman, wine, these all things are not good. So we shouldn't renounce. We shouldn't do a mockery of doing renunciation. Yeah, that should never be done. And on the other hand, right? So as I said, right, even a small service, say like um, sweeping the road, right? So when there is Rath Yatra or so any cleaning activity which we do in the temple, right? It is far more better. Yeah. And we did see one of the verse, right? Neha Bikramna Shosti. So any small endeavor which we do towards bhakti, right? So that actually that is counted, yeah, and then that is permanent. It's not temporary. Yeah. So that is far more better instead of doing these things. Yeah. So, so the actual renunciation is one should do it through proper training, and knowledge, and gradually get purified. Yeah. So else it will be destruction. So we'll have to have we'll have to go through Guru Shastra and all those things. Then only we'll know. Yeah. So we'll have to go through the parampara and all those things, wherein people have already done these things. Yeah. And then that tallies with the Shastras. We follow that. Yeah. We do sadhana, and then we slowly remove the dirt which is there in our heart. Then we can think of all these things. Without doing that, say if we do something whimsically, then it's very dangerous. Yeah. So that is being discussed here. So on the other hand, if a sincere person tries to control active senses by mind and begins in Krishna consciousness without attachment, he is by far superior. So he doesn't have any attachment. This is basically again Nishkama Karma Yoga. Yeah. So we do a service, any service which we are doing for the Lord, right? So we should not be attached to the fruits. Yeah. So here, right, and our goal, even in the last chapter, we saw that yoga is nothing but to connect with the Lord. Yeah. In this case, so Arjuna was very lucky, so wherein he had direct connection with the Lord. Yeah, and the Lord was sitting right next to him. Yeah, and our interest or the Shastra's interest is to reach Vishnu. Yeah, Swartagati is nothing but the goal of self-interest is nothing but Vishnu. So that is our aim. And even we have got the different varnashrama, right? So the varnashramas are also designed, right? So wherein, say we have different varna and ashramas, right? And these are all swadharmas, right? So wherein they are designed in such a way that we do devotional service, yeah, in all those four categories, right? So either it is a brahmachari, a grihastha, yeah, a vanaprastha or sannyasi. So everyone has got their own thing, yeah, to do service. So there are ways. there are their own ways wherein they can perform their activities and then stay connected in the devotional service to the Lord. Yeah. So this is what is being told, reached by members of every ashrama and varna through service in Krishna consciousness. For every ashrama and varna, right? So there are services which are already defined, and then the only thing is we'll have to follow those things. Yeah. So and then so this is what, right? Our own goal should be that, so we follow the dharma or the swadharma. There are two things. Yeah, one is swadharma and sanatan dharma, right? So mostly sanatan dharma is nothing but all these religious activities and all, right? So it is more connecting with the Lord. So we tend to forget that most of the time. Yeah, because that's our tendency, right? So because when we are born, right? So we say while taking birth, we pray to the Lord so much to actually come out of the mother's womb, right? So from that painful position. And then once we are out, right, so we forget the Lord. So all these things are very beautifully explained in Sankhya. Yeah? So in Bhagavad Gita, third canto, so all these things are very detailedly explained. And even currently in the temple, say 8 o'clock, so we are doing, actually Namnishth Prabhu is taking those classes only. Yeah. So Kapila Muni's Sankhya, beautiful actually. So here if you see, right, the social orders. So Brahmachari and then Grihastha, Vanaprastha, Sannyasa, right? They follow the rules and regulations which are mentioned from the Shastras, and then there is gradual purification. And pretenders are greatest cheaters. Yeah. So they are actually stolen by the illusory energy. So sincere person controls senses, engages in karma yoga without attachment. It is far superior. So this is what we told, right? So the sweeper of the temple is far better, yeah, compared to this pretender. Okay. So we should not ever think of those things. Yeah. And so perform your prescribed duties. In the next verse, Lord says, duty for doing so is better than not working. Yeah. So whatever work is there, right? So you'll have to perform that. Even for the maintenance of the body, right? So you can't do, say, like for an example of a tiger, right? Even a tiger has to hunt, right? So because tiger needs meat and flesh, right? So if tiger doesn't hunt and then eat its own prey, right? So will any of the animal come and say that, okay, so today you can eat me? No one, right? So even the lion, take for the example of lion. So lion was the king of the jungle, right? For him also, right? Hunting has to be done. Yeah. Without that, so nothing is impossible. So so he cannot get the food. Yeah. So no one will come and no animal will come and say that, okay, actually say eat me. Yeah. So no one will actually surrender to that. Yeah. And basically these pretenders are professional men. Yeah. So they are their whole thing is money making. Yeah. They do some feeds and all those things, right? And then they misguide the general public. So we shouldn't go. Yeah. So we shouldn't look into that. Always follow the Shastra, what Shastra says, right? Because they don't have an agenda. So if you ask, right, so which parampara and all those things, right, they'll not have a parampara. They'll say that they themselves are God. Yeah. And then God will go to hospital for medicine and all. Yeah. So they'll have heart surgeries also. So that is how these pretenders are. Okay. And so here, right, so Arjuna is a Grihastha and a Kshatriya, right? So here it is being advised that he should follow his dharma. Yeah. And then the so-called renunciation, right, of activity is never performed. So without purification, right, this is not approved. The renunciation without purification is not approved by the Lord or by any of the religious scriptures. Yeah. This is what we were speaking through, right? And then so this even the Lord clarifies. Yeah. So basically the material attachment, right, and the sense control, all these things will come over a period. Yeah. So it will not happen all of a sudden. Yeah. So so performing prescribed duties is better than not working. Yeah. So you do your duties. So by performing that, there will be gradual purification. Yeah. Else, fall down since activity is giving up purifying heart. So basically here we see, right, Arjuna is a Kshatriya and Grihastha, and then he should engage himself in the war. Yeah. Being a Kshatriya. So the 3.9 verse, right? So this is one of the important verse. Yeah. So here, right, say the details are being given. Yeah. So wherein the sacrifice or the yagna. So from here on, so we'll actually learn about the yagna. Yeah. So here the meaning is that work done, right, as a sacrifice for Vishnu. Yeah. So that is the means for liberation from all bondages which we have in, right. So in this verse, if you look in, right, yagnarth karmano anyartha lokoyam karma bandhana tadartham karma kaunteya mukta sangha samachara. So he says that yagna anartha. Here if you do, right, if you are not doing yagnartha karmano anyartha, yeah. So the meaning is, if you are not performing the sacrifices for Vishnu, right, and then if you are doing anyartha, anything else, right, so lokoyam, then you will be in karma bandhana. So you will be attached to karma bandhana. Yeah? So that is being mentioned here, right? And then all our endeavors should be to get liberated. So mukta sangha. Yeah? So that is only by which we can actually get liberation. Yeah. So the translation is, work done as a sacrifice for Vishnu has to be performed. Otherwise, work causes bondage in the material world. So this is what karma bandhana is, nothing but bondage in the material world. Therefore, O son of Kunti, perform your prescribed duties for his satisfaction, and in that way you will always remain free from bondage. So all our activities, or say the yagnas, has to be done to satisfy Vishnu, because Vishnu is known as Yagnapati. Yeah. So all those things will come. Yeah. So here yagna means Lord Vishnu, or the sacrificial performance. So all meant for satisfaction of the Lord Vishnu. Yeah. And performance of yagnas and serving Lord Vishnu directly. Yeah. If someone wants to read, say they can read. Yeah. So anyone can raise a digital hand and they can read. Yeah. Atmaja Mataji, go ahead, Mat. Hare Krishna.
Means Lord Vishnu Hare Krishna.
Mataji, you'll have to be a little bit louder.
Hello.
Yeah, Mataji, go ahead. Maybe your
Yes.
mouthpiece is a little bit far. Can you bring it closer and then read it?
Now, Prabhuji.
Yeah, better, Mataji. Go ahead.
Yajna means Lord Vishnu sacrificial performances, all meant for the satisfaction of Lord Vishnu. Yajno Vai Vishnu. Performance of yajnas and serving Lord Vishnu directly serve the same purpose. Both are working in Krishna consciousness. The Varnashrama institution also aims at satisfying Lord Vishnu. Varna
No, good, Mataji. So maybe if you can't read this, move to the next line. Yeah.
Sense gratifying work done in this material world is a cause of bondage. Good and evil work have the reactions binding the performer. Working in Krishna consciousness liberates one gradually, elevating him to God's kingdom. Delightfully done under the expert guidance of a devotee of Lord Krishna, directly under the Lord himself, most desirable. Arjuna was most fortunate to have such an opportunity. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Mataji. So here, right? So yajna. So it refers to Lord Vishnu or the sacrificial performance. Yeah. And so the basically all our work, right? It should be done to satisfy Lord Vishnu. And then why do we perform yajnas? Yeah. So or the sacrifices, right? It actually removes the false ego and the sense of self proprietorship, right? So and so one actually perceives some transcendence, yeah, to the extent that one partakes to the sacrifice, because while doing sacrifice, right, you go through a lot of, at least for that day, right, say you're austere, yeah, and then say you give some charity, and then you feed prasadam, yeah? So all those things happen, yeah, so that actually grounds us, yeah. So that is one thing, one takeaway which we can think of from here, yeah. And so in this pictorial thing, right, so you can see that action work performed, right, should be the satisfaction for Vishnu, so not binding but liberating, yeah. So this will actually liberate. So this is the path which we are following through, right? So through the spiritual master, and so we are actually following through this path, and then we'll gradually elevate and then develop these loving services to the Lord, and then this would be the final destination. So if we don't do these things, right, what will happen is we'll have the actions of our karma, good and bad, and then we'll be in this cycle of birth and death. Yeah. So that continues. So till there, right, till 3.9, right? So it was, so we all discussed about Nishkama Karma Yoga, yeah. And then say if that's not possible, right? So if we can't actually give away the results, and then we are attached to the results, right? So it is better to follow the Karma Kanda, so which is actually mentioned in the Vedas, yeah. So slowly we'll actually rise from Karma Kanda to Karma Yoga. There is a yoga ladder. So these are all the rungs. Yeah. So wherein, so from Karma Kanda we'll go to Karma Yoga, and then Jnana Yoga, Buddhi Yoga, and then there are different stages like Bhava, Prema, and then those are advanced. Yeah. So those we will see. Okay, any of so this has come in any of this yoga ladder, right? So I think yeah. So this is the lowest is animal life, and then karma kanda, then sakama karma yoga, where you are attached to the fruits or fame and wealth, yeah. And then above it is niskama karma yoga, where you are not attached to the fruits of work, yeah. And then jnana, so accumulating knowledge. And then this is ashtanga yoga, mystic siddhis, and bhakti yoga, yeah. So and above all this, right, bhakti yoga is top, yeah. So which is like an elevator. So we'll have to start and then climb these, yeah. But here, say by the mercy of Prabhupada and our parampara, right, so we are actually getting to know the express elevator thing, yeah. So yeah, but still we are somewhere in the karma kanda only. So because we are just following the rituals, and then we are doing our sadhana, yeah, and then trying to get things purified. Yes, when things will get purified, right? So this would be the path which we will take. Yeah, this is the bhakti yoga path which actually goes on. It's a faster means, but yes, um, everything has to be purified. It's not that it will happen in one shot. But yeah, if we have some sukruti from our past, right, so then things become faster. Yeah, so people, if you see, right, so come to Krishna conscious, right, even in a year, right, so they become so advanced. Yeah, because that's something, say, they had. So it's all last janma sukruti which was left over, and then in this janma they are starting from there, and for few it may take time, but our endeavor should continue. So we don't know, so when we'll get the mercy of the Lord. Yeah, so and in here, right, say why yagnas are required, and then say why was this introduced, we'll get to know here, right? So in the dawn of creation, right, the Lord actually created all the creatures, right? So with that, say he actually introduced, he only gave this yagnas so that the living entities, right, they perform the yagnas, the sacrifices, and then they satisfy the devatas, who in turn give us all the supplies for the livelihood. Yeah, and then by doing this, right, so we get purified, and then so the ultimate goal is to go back to the Godhead. So this was the path which was being laid down. Yeah, and then we know that material creation was done by Vishnu, by the glance, by his glance he created this material world. Yeah, so this material world is not created by any chance. Yeah, so it was created by the Lord himself. So these are a couple of verses wherein she can understand that it was the Lord who created this material world. So by just seeing, yeah, say he did it, and then he only through Vedas, right? He has given us the information that how do we go back when we are on this material world, right? How do we live happily? Yeah, and then how we can go back to the Godhead. So even everything was given, but yes, so we have left it out because we are more interested in actually sense gratification. So that's the thing which is being addressed here, right? Yeah. Here, if you see, right, Prajapati is nothing but the Lord. Yeah. So yagnas are to satisfy the Lord, and then in the material world, assured very comfortable life without anxiety. So it was all the purpose. So if you look in say during the time of Yudhishthir Maharaj regime, all right, so he used to do so many sacrifices, yagnas, yeah. And so everything, so the people, the nature, everything was actually cooperating with him. Yeah. So all these things were given. Yeah. And then this is the famous shloka, right? Vedesya cha sarvaraham eva vidya. So this is 15.5. Yeah. So you'll know by reading Vedas, right? You'll come to know that Lord Krishna is the ultimate goal whom we have to reach in. Yeah. So in there are different types of sacrifices which are being done to perform different devatas. So we who actually give us rains, yeah, and then say with those rains, right? So we actually get grains, yeah, which are required for the livelihood and all those things, right? And there are other things also, right? For metals, all those things, right? So there are different departments which Lord Vishnu has created. Yeah. So similar to our prime minister, right? He has got different ministers, finance minister, education minister. Similarly, we want to learn something, we can we'll put our say we pray to the relevant devatas to give us, say, goddess Saraswati or Ganesh to give us say the education, right? So similarly, there are different gods, yeah, sun god. So if we perform these yajnas, right, so they get satisfied, and in turn, say they shower the benedictions, yeah, so which are required for our livelihood, yeah. Without sunlight, we can't exist, yeah. Without breeze, we cannot. Without air, can we live? No. And what else? Without water, we can't live, yeah. So all these things are benedictions from the devatas, which are nothing but the different sections, yeah. And the ultimate satisfaction is Yagnapati, and the chief among them is Vishnu, none other than Krishna. Yeah. So, and even in the 5th chapter, Krishna will say that Bhoktaram Yagna Tapasam. Yeah. So he is the enjoyer of all yajnas. Yeah. So that we'll come to know in the coming chapter. Yeah. And why we actually do yajnas? Because they give us all the essentials are being supplied. You see, raw materials, yeah, and even sunlight, moonlight. Because without moonlight, say, will vegetables grow? No. So we need all these things, yeah. So we'll have to do, say, in the Vedas, right? So these are all in the lines of karma kanda, yeah. So wherein we'll have to actually satisfy Indra, Chandra, and all those things to get benedictions from them. Yeah. So, but even if you look in from the devotees of the Lord or Krishna, right? So they are directly worshipping the Lord Himself, right? So like they are already the custodians of Lord Krishna, right? And all these devatas which are there, they are under the control of Krishna. So if we worship Krishna heartfully, right? So that would suffice. We need not actually offer all these offerings to other Devi Devatas, because we are actually pouring the water to the root itself. Yeah. So rather than pouring the water to the leaves and all, right? So if it is not possible, then we'll have to go through that cycle. But if we surrender to Krishna, and then say, if we are doing our devotional service with sincerity, right? So we need not go through all this process. Yeah. So yeah, that is what is mentioned here. Yeah. So pure devotees of the Supreme Lord, they see uh, the Lord in their heart and all. Yeah. So, and then so this is the next verse, right? So wherein this is also an important verse. So how this cycle goes on, right? Annad bhavanti bhutani parjanyad anna sambhava yagnad bhavati parjanyo yagna karma samudbhava. So with annad, so grains are required for the existence of living entities. Yeah. And then this is only possible through rains, and rains are possible by yagnas. Yeah. So that is being, this is the text. All living bodies subsist on food grains, which are produced from rains. Rains are produced by performance of yagnas, and yagnas is born of prescribed duties. So this is the cycle. Yeah. So the cycle goes on. Yeah. So we just spoke in, right? Indra, Chandra, and Varuna supply these all things, and then this is how the cycle goes in. So this is what Chandra, juice in plants, right? So without moonlight, the vegetables will not have the juice or the taste which we get in, right? So we don't get it. So this is again the extension, right? So of what we are discussing. So regulated activities are prescribed in the Vedas. Yeah? And Vedas are directly manifested from Supreme Personality of Godhead. We know, right? So Vedas came from the breathing of the Lord. Yeah? So Lord is omnipotent. Yeah, so He can do anything. So with His eyes, He can create the material world. With His breathing, He can actually, the Vedas can come out, and from His navel, Lord Brahma can be born. Yeah, so all these things the Lord can do, right? So He's omnipotent. He can do anything with any of His limbs, which is not possible by anyone else. Yeah. So this is again the same thing. Here he says, you see, breathing of the Supreme Lord, Vedas were directly. All these things are there in the purports. Yeah? So you can read through. Even he is omnipotent, the one which I spoke, right? He impregnates with his eyes. Yeah. So that is Lord. And then if you don't follow all these things, so what will happen? So life is full of sin. Yeah? So that everyone knows. This is the flip side. So this is this would be the condition. Yeah? It's a funny picture. Yeah, and then so this is the next section is about Nishkam Karma Yoga to set correct examples. Yeah, so then we can stop here because it's already 6:03. So we have covered 2 sections, and then we'll cover next 2 sections in the next chapter. Because even if I start also, right, I'll end up somewhere in between. So it will be ideal. We'll start the next 2 sections in the next class, and we can wind up. So in the next class, we can wind up chapter 3. Yeah. Okay. Hare Krishna. Yeah, are there any questions in today's class which you want to take up? And I think Aishwarya Mataji has shared the attendance link. Please mark your attendance. Okay. Aishwarya Mataji, Shiv Kumar Prabhu has some query. What was it? He gave his mobile number and Gmail. I don't know. So, Shiv Kumar Prabhu, are you asking her to validate whether your attendance has been marked or not? Is that the query which you are having? Or where is Shiv Kumar Prabhu? He has left, is it? Okay, that's fine. So Aishwarya Mataji can look in. Oh, okay. It was whose hand? Sorry, I just lowered it hand. It was, who was the other person?
Hare Krishna Prabhuji.
Okay, Hare Krishna Prabhuji, go ahead. Sukant Prabhu.
Yeah, Prabhuji, from this discussion today, just one query, Prabhuji.
Yeah, go ahead, Prabhu.
About this Jnana Yoga and Buddhi Yoga.
Yeah, Prabhu.
I'm a bit confused, Prabhuji. What is the difference and what is the similarity? Are they one or are they different? How do we?
See, the end goal is one, Prabhu. So you understood that, right? So, yeah. So the both, right? So whether you do Karma Yoga or you do Jnana Yoga, yeah. So the end goal would be to achieve Krishna. Yeah. So with Karma Yoga, right? So if you do Nishkama Karma Yoga, right? So Karma Yoga in the sense, Nishkama Karma Yoga, if you do, right? So you're not attached to the fruits, right? So that is, so you'll reach to Sthita Prajna, and then so you will become self-realized person, and then the devotional path starts, and then you move on there, right, Prabhu? And then you actually reach the destination. Yeah. For the Gyanis, right? Say again, say after knowing the spirit and the body is different, and after going through all these speculative things, and then they come to an understanding that okay, so spirit is different from the body and all those things, right? Once they come to that stage, then they'll actually again take up bhakti. Yeah. And then say their goal is again they'll reach to Krishna. Yeah. So in both the cases, right? So the end goal is both are the same, both are the rungs of the same ladder. Yeah. So its only way is say this devotional service, right? So the Nishkam Karma Yoga is faster, and then that's an indirect way. This is a direct way, Prabhu. Okay.
Just one follow-up, Prabhuji. So how do I understand that Sankhya Yoga leads to this Jnana Yoga, or Sankhya Yoga is entirely different thing and Jnana Yoga is entirely different?
No. Sankhya is Jnana only, no, Prabhu?
Sankhya is Jnana.
And just so maybe you meditate upon these example which I gave in, Prabhu. So about the Jnanis become liberated by bhakti, right? In there, so we actually spoke about the 4 Kumaras, right? So, so before they met the Lord Vishnu, right? So they were all what? So they were Jnanis, right? And then when they smelled the Tulsi of Lord Vishnu, right? You know that episode, Prabhu. So if not, then you can read. Then they become bhaktas. Okay. So then, so they took up the devotional service from therein. Yeah. And the other example which we spoke about was the Gyani, the Karmis, right? So if you look at King Janaka, right? He performed all the prescribed duties, right? So he was a liberated soul. So he was setting an example of how by doing karma yoga, right, our hearts get purified. Yeah. And getting heart purified is nothing but jnana, right? So and then you'll reach to the goal of the abode, yeah, Prabhu. So that's the thing. And so if you need more example, right? See the I'll tell you about karma yoga. Okay. So karma means what? Purative action, right? So everyone, say in general, right? The masses are working daily for what? For to earn more, right? So what do? So they earn more for what? Sense gratification, right? So what is sense gratification? Bigger car, bigger house to live, right? So we are getting more sense gratification. So that is karma. Okay. And say, and when this we turn it to karma yoga, right? Means that the activities which is our occupation, and then wherein we engage ourselves in that activity. Yeah. So, and the result of the sense gratification is not there. Okay. But we are satisfying the objective, which is nothing but so we are satisfying Krishna. So whatever we are doing, right? Say if we do it for Krishna, then that becomes karma yoga, the prescribed duties. Yeah. So in that way, so both are same. So don't get confused. But the both are not same, but similar. But the end goal is same. Yeah. So that is. So one is speculative, and the other is so wherein you have got the process and everything, and then so you do that, so you reach the goal. So one is a direct, one is an indirect. Yeah. So that's the difference, Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Thank you so much, Prabhuji. Hare
Thank
Krishna.
you. Probably I took a longer route, but yeah, I just wanted to explain. Hare Krishna. Who else? I think Rajni Mataji has a query. Rajni Mataji, go ahead.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji. I have 2 questions actually.
Mataji, go ahead.
While you were discussing all this, first of all, why creators and ask us to do all this? Why creators push us here and again tell us, okay, you come back to me, come back to me.
So Mataji, we came. Creators didn't push in.
No, but why did he create us then?
That's what, right? So that was our ego. So we couldn't stay there. So we were all in the spiritual world, but we didn't like that. So we were more interested in sense gratification and all those things. So that's the reason we are kicked out from
No,
there.
no, Prabhuji, the way you gave us an example of a candy. So why did he have to create all the rest of it? Like he created us, that's fine. Then why did he create all the rest of it?
Which one? Say, how do you live? How do you go back, right? So
So you get the example of a candy, like if
that
the
is higher
child is
taste,
not given an
Mataji.
option at all, apart from the candy,
No,
if
no,
it is
that
not
is Mataji, that is in context with the higher taste. Okay.
so why give us any other taste at all then?
So that is that we asked. So that was our desire. The Lord never pushes anyone anywhere. So that is our desire.
No,
So
but why did
we
Lord create us at all?
that's what, right? You chose, Mataji. So you chose in the spiritual, when you are in the spiritual world, right? You or me, right? So we all didn't follow, or we didn't like the spiritual world, and then we wanted to enjoy the material senses. We did sense gratificatory things. So that's the reason. So basically, we didn't follow the law and order. Okay. So what happens in a state? So if we don't follow the law and order, right? So we are put in a jail for what? To get reformed. Yeah. So we are in a jail to get reformed and go back to the Godhead. So even Lord Krishna says, so this is Dukkhalayam Ashashvitam. Yeah. So we'll read that verse also, Mataji. So these were all our desires, and then we didn't obey there. So that's the reason we are here. And then say here, and then how do you do? Say, how do you come out of this mess? So for that reason, say all these things, all these Vedas and all are being given. So wherein we follow that path and then get liberated and then move on. Yeah?
So in that case, where are we on the yoga ladder?
Possibly somewhere in Karma Kanda.
Karma Kanda is the state or the phase, but
there only, Mataji. So what are we doing? Say, how much service are we doing? Yeah. So we are max, we are trying to learn the nuances. Yeah. So we are at the beginning stage. Yeah. So now more or less what are we doing? So we are only chanting and not even Shuddha Nama. Yeah. And say how much time do we spare for the Lord in a day? Do we spare 8 hours minimum?
No.
No. So that is what even Krishna says in the later chapters, right? Say he delivers depending upon how much we are dependent on him. Yeah. He actually reciprocates depending upon how much we surrender to him. Yeah, Mataji.
Okay, Prabhuji,
So
maybe
all these things will get clarified. So we are at the very beginning stage, Mataji. Even say if I'll tell you, right? So we are not even devotees. We are sadhakas. We are doing what we are being told to do. Okay. So we are in that stage. So devotional service you'll get to know, Mataji. So slowly there are so many aspects and even there are different stages of devotional service. Yeah. All these things will come in. So even even nothing to repent, at least we know what to do now, right? At least we are actually we are searching for that path, and so we are on the right track. So let's follow it and then say get into this devotional service and move on the journey.
Yeah. Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna, Mataji. Anyone else has any question? No. And one thing from my side, any Mataji or Prabhuji who is good at bhajans? Maybe Aishwarya Mataji, you can ask in the next Bhakti Vriksha class, right? So if any Mataji or Prabhuji is good at bhajans, right? So maybe in the start of the class, right? And they can actually sing Vaishnava bhajans. So I think everyone has this book, Vaishnava bhajan book. So we can use this book. So the bhajans from this book will we can actually sing. Yeah. So if anyone knows, so this should be only from the book called Songs of the Vaishnava Acharya. Yeah. So not the other devotional songs which we have, but yeah, from our Acharya songs. You can check if there are no questions. Durgesh.
Sorry, Prabhuji, just one more question I had. What was that Bhoktaram Yagna Tapasa that you said? I could not get that actually.
That will come, Mataji. So that is a verse in 5th chapter.
Okay.
So that is 5.29. If you want to refer, that's the verse wherein the verse says Bhoktaram Yagna Tapasam Sarva Loko Maheshwaram Shrudam Sarva Bhutanam Gyatva Mam Shanti Mruchyate. So ultimate, all the sacrifices, right? All the sacrifices and austerities, right? So the ultimate beneficiary is Vishnu. So you'll know all these things in the coming chapter, but if you want to go through, right, you can go through the verse 5.29.
Okay, Prabhuji. Thank you.
Okay, I think there is one question. Do we have to chant Panchatattva mantra before every round of Maha Mantra? Not required, Durgesh Prabhu. So if you are doing it continuously, right, you need not do it. So how is your cycle? So can you tell me, where is Durgesh Prabhu? Can we actually unmute him? Hare Krishna, Durgesh Prabhu, you can speak. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. I do it continuously.
Now, continuously, then at the beginning, it's fine. So if you are breaking, right, maybe you're taking some mobile call in between, which is urgent, or so there is some other work, right, so which you have to attend. In those cases, whenever you take a break, right, and then again you'll have to recite the Panchatattva mantra and then start your rounds. And then if you are continuously sitting for 2 hours and doing your 16 rounds, not required for every round. But if there are breaks, we should actually do that. Okay.
Thank you, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna.
Okay, no other questions. We'll wind up the class for today. Thank you all for joining this class. Vanchakalpatarobhyascha kripa sindhubhya eva cha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnebhyo namo namah. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna.